India's relationships with Israel have of late acquired a depth and diversity which cannot be rolled back. Which cannot be rolled back. It has acquired a depth and diversity which cannot be rolled back. Now, which circle do you think it will come? Which circle do you think it will come? India and its neighbor, extended neighborhood, India and the world. Where would it come? Second circle. We're all clear on it. Perfect, guys. Perfect. Now, a number of outside powers have entrenched themselves. So let me also start writing it so that we are clear. So I'm calling this as India and its extended neighborhood. So let's quickly look at it. A number of outside powers have entrenched themselves in Central Asia, which is a zone of interest to India. Discuss implications. The contestant is joining Ashgabat Agreement. Okay. So which one, guys? Quickly. Neighbors, extended neighbors, India and the world, or organizations. It's once again going to be two. Correct. Extended neighborhood. India and USA are two large democracies. Examine the basic tenets, etc., etc. Where would this come? 3. Correct. India and the world. So this is India and the world. What are all the key areas of reform if WTO has to survive in the present context of trade war? So this one comes under IO, International Organization. That one covers under the 4th dimension, which is the international organization. Good. In what ways would the ongoing US-Iran nuclear controversy affect? Now this is a very interesting question. It directly, goes to this part. Effect of policies and politics of developed country. And one of you had also mentioned, I think it was Vaibhav or one of you, who said that where does this Iran-US thing come? They have actually asked a question, by the way, in 2018. So point 5 is an excellent example of, because this question, it can be classified as India-US. It can also be classified as India-Iran. So it is partly extended neighborhood and partly India and the world, which is the superpowers. But more precisely, it is the impact on India of a developed country's policy towards a third country. Okay, so to that extent, international relations has always a lot of movable parts. You move one part, you don't know where that impact will happen. Okay, so that's 2018. We were able to quickly decode it. Let's come to 2019 question. The time has come for India and Japan. Okay, strategic significance, the significant, great significance for Asia and the world. So India and Japan means the circle 2, extended neighborhood. Too little cash, too much politics leaves UNESCO fighting for life. Discuss the statement in light of US's withdrawal and its accusation that the cultural body is being used as an anti-Israel bias. So this is more of an IO, international organization question. The long-sustained image of India as a leader of the oppressed and marginalized nation has disappeared on account of its newfound role in the emerging global order. Can someone help me under what category would you place this? India and its neighbors, extended neighborhood, India and the world, and the international organization. This is a question. Okay, second and the world. Okay, this is a question which is primarily on India's foreign policy. Which means more or less India and the world, and it also touches upon some organizations and movements like non-aligned movement. They have not used the word non-aligned movement specifically, but that is what it means. The long-sustained image of India as a leader of the oppressed and the marginalized nations has disappeared on account of its newfound role in the emerging global order. Tough question to answer, actually. So this question will take, after we finish the entire IR, then we'll be able to answer. The other questions we'll keep answering while we are finishing the respective part of India. Okay. What introduces friction between India and US? Okay. So this becomes what? India and the world, especially India and the superpower. So that's 2019. Let's look at 2020. Critically examine the role of WHO in providing global health security, so that this becomes a direct international organization question. Indian diaspora has a decisive role to play. I didn't explain Indian diaspora, but it's okay. I'll explain now. Indian diaspora has a decisive role to play in the politics and economy of America and European countries. Direct question. Policy and politics and economy. Economy, we all understood. The first, most probably, the first paragraph of a UPSC aspirant's answer is likely to be about IT professionals going to US and making a difference. No doubt about it. That is a very valid part of the answer. But what we also need to answer is the politics part. Yeah. What we also need to answer is politics part. Now, luckily, we are in 2021, so we have someone by this name in US. But she's not the only one whom we can talk about the Indian diaspora. In UK, for example, we have Preeti Patel, who is the Home Secretary. Now, that's a big deal. It's like Home Minister. Yeah. And if you have seen in the Trump administration, there was Nikki Haley. She was the US's negotiator for United Nations. And every president, always among his top advisors, there is someone with Indian roots. Yeah, so we need to figure out who are all the important guys. Economy, you'll find a lot of them. No? For example, they have given comment with examples. Excellent. Yeah. So the more names you know, the better it is for you. So it helps us that recently this gentleman Parag Agrawal became the CEO of Twitter. Yeah, Rishi Sunak, very good. He's very good point, Bhavna. He happens to be the son-in-law of Mr. Narayana Murthy, but more importantly, he happens to be the finance minister of UK. Good point. So you have this Parag Agrawal as Twitter CEO. You have Sundar Pichai. You have Satya Nadella. You have I don't know the name of these guys, but head of IBM, head of Adobe. Till recently, there was Citibank CEO also. Then we have a lot of Indians in venture capital funds. So there are a lot. We can make an answer out of it. Don't worry. Okay. So that's on the politics and economy. Give with examples. So it kind of makes our job easy. The more examples you give, the more marks you get. Okay. Great. Quadrilateral security dialogue is transforming itself into a trade bloc from a Geeta Gopinath. Oh, yeah, Vaibhav, that's what you meant by Gopinath. Yeah, thank you. That also. Geeta Gopinath has been there. Before that, our Raghuram Rajan was a chief economist of IMF. And I don't know if you're aware, did you just see the news yesterday? Geeta Gopinath has now been promoted to number 2 position. So from chief economist, she has now become deputy managing director of IMF. It's a very proud moment for all of us here. Apparently the first Indian. And this is the first time where the IMF number 1 managing director and deputy managing director both are women. Okay. Geeta Gopinath, yes. So politics and economy of European countries, I think by the time we finish IR, we'll have a good headload of people of Indian diaspora who have made an impact. But then I want to add a small line of caution here. Whenever you think of diaspora, there is some space here, I think the space. There are multiple levels of diaspora. One is diaspora, which is, let's say, economic angle. Let me say economic angle. Then there is also a historical angle. Now, economic angle is all these countries where Indians in the 70s and 80s migrated for better economic opportunities. So that is US, UK, some of the other European countries. This side, if you look at it, West Asia, these were all purely economic reasons. West Asia, Australia. So all this started, let's say, by 70s. This is economic. But that alone is not Indian diaspora. I hope you understand it. The historical aspect of Indian diaspora, if I look at it, I'll go country by country. I'll take Nepal. Do we have Indian diaspora? Of course, we have Indian diaspora, and we have a particular name for them. They are called as the Madhesis. Do we have Indian diaspora in Bangladesh? By all means, we have. We have the undivided Bengal. So obviously, there is a very strong connection. But in this case, the uniting factor for Bangladesh is not religion, but what is the uniting factor for Bangladesh? It is there in the name itself. It's the language, Bangla. Yeah, we'll see how Pakistan somehow had miscalculated the aspirations of the Bangladesh population, which eventually led to its liberation in the 1971 war. Because unlike West Pakistan, which was completely focused on religion, and that's how this two-nation theory evolved and India got divided. the East Pakistan, they were also, good amount, good population of Muslims, and there was some Hindu population also. But their affinity was more towards language. Okay, so they saw Bengal as a nation, not Muslim as a nation. Okay, anyway, so that's on Bangladesh. How about historically? How about Sri Lanka? Definitely yes, we have Sri Lankan Tamils. How about Singapore and Malaysia? We definitely have a lot of connection historically. If you see some of the South Indian kingdoms, Chola, Pandya kingdoms, they had gone all the way up to Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia. Okay, so once again, I would say there is a very strong connect. Singapore and Malaysia, Indonesia, again there is a strong connect. Myanmar, historically, because Myanmar, India, all governed by Britain, people went from India to work in Myanmar and vice versa. So we have about 2 million people of Indian diaspora in a country like Myanmar. So is this clear? So when someone says Indian diaspora, do not limit your understanding only to this. Yes, this is important, but if at all, see in this case, it was good that the question was very specific to US and Europe. Suppose it was not specific to US and Europe, you are expected to add these two broad dimensions, economic and historical. Under economic, you are supposed to say all these points. Under historical, you are supposed to say all these points. Is this clear, guys? That is Indian diaspora for you. Okay. Quadrilateral security dialogue is transforming. Okay. So in this case, this would once again come under which one? Quad. So India, Japan, US, and Australia. So you could call it as a more of a regional grouping, area-wise, because it is Pacific, but doesn't matter. So this is also fits into the syllabus. What is the significance of Indo-US deal over Indo-Russian defense deal? Discuss with reference to stability in the Indo-Pacific region. Okay. So now what are they doing? The question asks us to compare two bilateral deals. Significance of Indo-US deal over Indo-Russian defense deal, and with reference to Indo-Pacific region. So broadly, as you may have looked at it, if we get the basics right, and if we have a fair amount of understanding of current affairs, the questions are attemptable. Yeah, and knowing international relation also gives you an edge over others in essay. Sometimes, typically, the majority of Janata, it chooses topics around education, health, that is topics related to polity or society. So 75%, whatever I've seen in my experience, having evaluated a lot of essay copies, the general tendency is move towards this society and polity topics. So IR, very few people choose. So UPSC has also changed that. It has left all subjects and they have moved entirely into philosophy. But leaving that aside, you still have one question out of the 8 questions, which is either directly from international relations, or if you understand international relations, you can add more dimensions to that essay. Okay, let's